Hi, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I will be reviewing Sleeping Dolls by Helen Phifer. Sleeping Dolls is book number 6 in the Detective Morgan Brooks series. And yes, I have read the first 5, and let me just tell you what they are in case you're interested in following the series. It was One Left Alive, The Killer's Girl, The Hiding Place, First Girl to Die, Find the Girl, and this one, Sleeping Dolls. Now, I have to, and by the way, I believe you can get all of these on Kindle Unlimited if you have a Kindle Unlimited subscription. The other thing, two other things I want to mention. Another thing I would like to mention is that each of the books that this publisher, Bookouture, releases that are parts of series can be read as standalones because the cases that the detectives or inspectors handle are contained within that book. But if you like continuity and you like to get to know your characters, then I highly recommend reading the series all the way through. So, and like I said, you can grab them at Kindle Unlimited for nothing if you have a Kindle Unlimited subscription. And that ties into the last thing I wanted to mention before I talk about the book is I want to thank Bookouture and NetGalley for this arc for review. Now, in book number 5, Find the Girl, our detective Morgan Brooks was really concerned about somebody that had escaped from prison. Meanwhile, they were looking for a vicious killer. Well, something happened to Morgan towards the very end of book 5, Find the Girl. Now, book 6, this one here, Sleeping Dolls, doesn't mention it at all. Or if it does, it's just, just on the fringes of it. So you don't have to read Find the Girl. But the reason that I'm mentioning that is that this case that Morgan is working on is her first case since she came back to work. Now, I did have to Google something because in this book, in these murders, and it started off with one woman being killed, and then, yes, there was a second woman that was murdered. There was a certain thing that was done, and the detectives, when they're talking at the crime scene, they mention a Victorian tradition. So I Googled it, and with the case of the first woman that they found, her name was Shirley, by the way, the clock was stopped at 6, and all the mirrors were covered. So that was a creepy, eerie scene that Morgan and the other detectives came upon or are investigating. But then another murder happens, and a knife that was missing from the first murder victim's home was used to kill the second murder victim. And the same thing happened. The clocks were stopped and the mirrors were covered. So I did Google it. I had to admit, and basically it was because of fear of the dead and if you didn't want the spirits and whatever. But that's what Morgan and her team are dealing with, and as far as the investigation is concerned. Now, even though both women were murdered and the setting was the same, Morgan cannot find a link that ties both of these women together. So her investigation is pretty tense because of trying to find who the killer is, especially because another victim could turn up, and they, of course, don't want that. Now, what I like about this book is up until now, in each book that we have in this series, we got to know a lot about Morgan and her difficult past. One of the things that had been brewing with Morgan is her boss, Ben, I think is Matthews. He's the detective sergeant. She's the detective. He's a detective sergeant, so he's technically her boss. They have a relationship, and now in this book, they actually have moved in together. Now, when it comes, oh, and then there's one other, I keep saying one other thing. Also, there's a new boss, and his name is Marcel, but they call him Mark. He rubs everybody the wrong way, ruffles feathers the second he walks in the door. In fact, he was scheduled a week later than when he showed up, so he caught everybody by surprise. With the way that these murders are occurring, then you got the new boss, and then you see a little bit about Morgan's relationship with Ben. This book mostly focuses on the police procedural aspect of what the series entails, investigating a murder or murders and trying to find the killer. Now, the pacing in this book was superb. It was excellent. And I liked the fact that there were snippets of something or something that happened to someone back in 1989. So while most of the book takes place now with what Morgan and her team are working on, there are some chapters that are peppered into the story that reflect back to something that happened to somebody back in 1989. So we know in some way that 1989 scenario plays into what's going on right now. Of course, it's going to take the team a lot of work to figure that out. So when you look at the pacing, you look at the twists and turns, and I have to use the word red herrings, because you, if you're like me, might be caught by surprise as to who the killer is. And I love the path that our author, Helen Phifer, led us down. She kept me riveted to this book. In fact, this was one of the books that I read in one sitting because it was so good. So there you have it, Sleeping Dolls by Helen Phifer. I believe it released on the 13th, so this video will go up as soon as I edit it, but thank you for watching. Bye-bye.